here's the bleached bone applied over the entire first portion, or at least first portion I'm working on, of the ruler. I did not dry brush this layer. I touched on this a little bit in my former video, the last one anyway. Painted with a pretty good brush, has a decent point on it, but not perfect. I just went in and highlighted all of the raised areas. Now that's still a little bit brownish, so I'm going to go over the center spinal column and these two most prominent ridges with skull white. And that ought to help it pop a bit. And of course remember that around the bones of the ruler it's going to be blue. So part of the reason why it looks so brown here is because we obviously have a ton of brown like right around in here, but that's all going to be blue to represent the water of the table. So it'll look more white at completion than it does right now. And this is pure skull white. Start here at the end. I know it seems tedious, but it'd be good practice for when we actually do the ships. You can see already it's standing out a lot more than on this side. Let me go ahead and finish this section and then I'll show you once done. And here we are again. Now this was the ruler that's completed up until the wash, and this has the next bleached bone layer. And this one has a touch of the skull white. You can definitely see a difference between all three. Now I'm sorry for had some comments about the green glare from my work surface. And I don't see that while I'm working, but I do see it in the video, and I'm sorry about that. I was thinking of switching to my Space Hulk table, but that also has its own built-in issues with lighting. Alright, now here is a ship's wheel that has been washed and left to dry. And I've added some bleached bone. Let me just lay them down, it's easier. Added bleached bone. Not dry brushing, but again, a more fine detail highlight. All the little rims in the wheel itself, and then to the skeleton. Once this is dry, I'm going to go over that with the skull white for the captain steering the wheel. It's kind of dry. Well, I'll leave it on the side. We'll do this one first. So again, I apologize for that glare, but at the moment I don't think I can fix it. And I have to refocus here a second. Okay, I'm back. Generally, I have to refocus my camera depending on how far close I'm going to be. This is actually only about 2 inches from the lens. It's pretty dang close. You're going to go in with your bleached bone. inches highlight. Now you're probably wondering, why are we bothering to detail some of these things? Well, number one reason, it's to give you good practice for getting to the ships, especially if you haven't painted miniatures before. The more comfortable you get used to doing these things, the easier it will be to move on to the larger things. Just stick to the ridges. Anything that really stands out, these little teeth, just give them a tap. Now, the skull section, a little bit more leeway. Now, there's a process called feathering, which I don't think I've talked about yet. I'm going to try to explain it here. Now when you add dry paint, or wet paint to dry paint, like this, say, you're going to take that paint and try to spread it out as much as possible over your surface. Now my brush is a little bit damp, so it kind of defeats the purpose of my explanation. But what you want to do is try to get as much of a gradient as possible. You don't want a solid cutoff line, at least not in this case. And I have more pug hair on my brush. I'll show you feathering again on something else. This is a little bit too small. And I do have quite a solid line built up here, which I'll try to feather out. Keeping your darkest paint to the recesses. This will be your most time-consuming step. Anything with detailing with tiny brushes requires a steady hand and time. And you can dry brush at this point, but dry brushing is a messy business. And we're going for a crisp, cleaner look now that we've applied the wash. So we want to avoid the dry brushing as much as possible now. You can see where we're going with that. And then you just keep up doing your detailing. And I also use the bleach bone to go in and highlight the edges of the bone for the ship's wheel, which you can see here. And that's, I will not use skull white anymore on the actual ship's wheel that the skeleton is steering. Sorry. And I want to keep my brightest white focused on the skeleton. And here we are again with another before and after shot. This ship's wheel has the bleached bone highlighted, and this one has the skull white highlighted over the bleached bone. This one hasn't gotten that treatment yet. Pretty cool, I think. Just that little bit extra, you know. And I'm going to want to do the same thing with Bone Hydra. start with your bleached bone. Now if you have any suggestions on what I can do to prevent some of this glare, I was even thinking of spray painting my painting table black, except black is a very light absorbing color, so that might have a negative effect on the models. White is definitely, I can't use that. I've used that so many times in the past thinking that was the best, but it's also it just tricks the camera out. Well, looking at some of my old Space Hulk videos, you can see what I mean. Everything appears so dark. Now maybe a off gray or something, I don't know. What was I talking about? Oh, right. Bone hydra. So, again, just go in. And highlight the ridges. Nothing to it really, just time. And then once you do the skull, of course you want to go on to the vertebrae. And show as much of the crevices between the vertebrae as possible. And then in areas like over here, where you see a nice line of indentation along the vertebrae, steer clear of that as well. You definitely want that to show up. So paint over and under. Let me zoom in. Possibly you could see what I mean. Okay. I don't think I can possibly get closer than this, since the camera is just about touching the hydra. But you can see here, there's this nice little indentation along these vertebrae. Paint around that as you see, like what I've done. See, all of the darker colors remain in the crevices and makes your highlights stand out that much more. And from a distance, it creates a nice smooth transition, which as I move my camera away, you don't get. But trust me, when it's on the table, your eyes will see it like a smoother transition than what it is in actuality when you hold it up really close. It's similar to what we did here. Now if you notice, I highlighted 2 little strokes on these top vertebrae. You don't have to do that. There's no indentation along the top part here, but I just indicated that just for a little bit of difference. Just a little extra detail. So, and after you apply the bleach bone, again, do the same thing with skull white. But always when you layer paint, try to leave some of that paint from your previous layer showing. So, well, let me just grab the skull white and try to show this to you. Alright, my bleach bone layer is probably fairly dry. I'm going to grab just a little bit of skull white. That's a lot of skull white I grabbed. Oh well. It don't matter. Where am I painting? I can't even see. Okay. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to lightly tap it. So you can still see the darker crevice from the wash layer. You can still see a little bit of the bleached bone, and now you get the skull white highlight as well. And again, it's tiny, tiny detail, but it looks great. It's time consuming, but like anything else, if you want it to look good, you got to put more time into it. Yeah, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I haven't done the lower jaw here yet, but you see where I'm going with that. And once you learn the patience to do this on these smaller models, tokens, what have you, the ships are going to be a cinch to do. It's just a matter of getting used to the patience and the actual doing of it. So you certainly don't have to go quite this far into detailing these pieces, but again, in the end, they'll look better, and you learn the patience by doing. Turtle is going to be a slightly different story. I'm actually going to do a little bit of dry brushing on Turtle with more bleached bone, and then go in and finally detail with skull white. We got a lot of flat surfaces here, and that's pretty good for the dry brushing. Actually, I could probably use a pretty thick, nice brush and not dry brush. Maybe I'll do that. I always like dry brushing whenever not possible. Or tripping over my words again. I prefer not dry brushing whenever possible, because I'm not very good at it, admittedly. I'm not a very good dry brusher. I've also decided we're going to save these castles for later. I haven't felt like doing the castles yet. Trying to get to the water as quick as possible, really. Where's that good brush? Kind of good brush I said I had. Oh! Dropping stuff all over the floor. Okay. Oh, I can show you feathering. Yay! Okay, so you can take your wet paint and apply it like so. Dry off your brush as necessary, and then tap it and work it into a nice blend with your already existing coat of paint. Yeah, that's what I mean by feathering. Because your layer that you're working on is obviously dry. You're putting on some wet paint. Dry your brush off a little bit, and then pull that paint outward from the source. Sometimes you can grab some water. It may or may not help you. Sometimes it'll pull the paint too much or separate the pigments a little bit. Just work it into a nice blend. It's easier to do than to explain. Trust me. Yeah, it takes a little bit of work, but it's definitely worth it. I've actually been thinking a lot since my last video of yesterday, actually, about actually going forward and trying to make one of my games that I talked about. This one particular game has been sitting around in my head for just years, and pretty much everything has worked out. It's a simple dice game in the same vein as zombie dice, if you're familiar with that. But there's a little bit more to it than that, than zombie dice. I might do it. I haven't decided yet. Mechanics and everything have already been worked out for a long time. It's just I've never gotten prototypes made or anything. I don't know who would be interested in my games, really, if any. I don't have a whole lot of confidence. I have confidence in my painting skills, but most everything else I've lost confidence. I don't know why. I just have. Now from here, you can see a little bit of what I've done with the rib cage, and I wash my brush. Again, always wash your brushes whenever you put them down. Have some towel paper to dry it on. Always try to keep the points as much as possible. Just going to jump ahead here and show you adding some skull white, even though this paint is still a little bit moist. I'm going to grab my good brush, or a decent brush, just with a point. I want to see how this looks for myself. Oh, come on, people. Really? Alright, hang on a second, guys. Now wash my brush again. Alright. Back to it. Now, taking the skull white and highlighting just along the edges. Stop shaking the couch, Muggs. It'll be easier to do without the camera. Sorry, guys. Oh, there you go. Kinda what I'm going for with the highlighting. I think once I apply that to the rest of the turtle, it'll look great. My lines are a little bit on the thicker side. My highlight skull white, I mean. A little bit on the thicker side than I'd like, but oh well. Hands are a little shaky today. Put you aside. Get some skull white. Do this other ship's wheel. Actually starting to get a little bit of a headache, so I'm gonna stop painting in a little bit here. You kind of get where I'm going with the skull white highlighting and such. Just had to do a little supplemental video to my last post. I felt I left you hanging a little bit. And the next series of videos, next port will be featuring water. I'm very eager and excited for. And yes, I will show the water, painting the water. And if you'd like to get a jump on that, I can already tell you what base coat to go with. Be using Necron Abyss, which is a GW foundation paint. You can go ahead and start painting all of the water parts with Necron Abyss. And that will include, of course, water that's up on the terrain. So grab your rocky terrain and check it out, see if there's any water that you want to paint. Hit all your water spots. And get out your ship bases. Paint those. Nice solid Necron Abyss layer. And just paint over the whole thing, even if there's critters or boats or debris or whatever else is on the base. Just paint it all. One solid blue coat. And that'll be a good start for you. Nice little headway into our next video segment. Oh, today is a downpour of rain, a deluge. I was really hoping not to have a downpour, seeing as how we're doing the bonfire weekend this weekend. But as I said to one poster, I don't think I have to worry too much because we have this flamethrower. It can usually solve all fire lighting issues. But we'll see. Oh, when we do this tedious work, you can really see how much my hands shake. Which is another reason why I'm doing this video series. And mostly for beginners, because I don't know how much longer I have to do this. I've used my hands in art for years, and it's starting to catch up with me. I know I'm only 30, but you know, I've been doing it a long time. So it's another reason why I'm taking some trades and stuff right now. Just trying to get as much painting in as possible before I really do have to call it quits. Maybe I'll do a Kickstarter on my game, maybe. I have no concept or clue of how I would distribute it. I could probably get it up on Amazon, like my children's books or something, but I'd be perfectly fine if all orders went directly through me. I don't even know if I'm actually going to go through with it, guys. I kind of like fun, fast, quick dice games at the moment because I can, you know, take dice anywhere. Especially to restaurants, and you wait for your food and roll some dice. One of the benefits of dice is that anyone will roll dice. It's like you can't always get people to play card games or board games, but you can usually get them to roll dice. And as long as the rules are simple, and it's a simple game, pretty much anyone will do it. And it's fun. Fun little pastime. Alright, so we've done the second ship's wheel with the skull white. And I'm pretty pleased with the outcome. So, that's all for today, mates. Now I'm going to finish up all this bone. And next week, when we come back, we'll be hitting up the water. So, Yes, looking forward to it. And sorry if I've gone a little bit fast on these videos. I don't mean to, it's just I've been kind of rushing to get to the water, but go at your own pace, don't feel the need to rush or catch up to where I am. I always take a break on the weekends too, so I'm sure you can catch up to me. Just don't race to do so. These videos will be available, you know, as long as YouTube's around, so there's no rush. You can see the videos whenever you want. That's it, me hearties. Join me next time. We'll be looking at the briny deep. Muggums! Oh, am I mean? Am I mean? Hey, I wake you up. Oh, nose! Oh, nose! Oh, nose! I'm leaving you hanging. Speaking of shaking hands, I had thought about becoming a tattoo artist for a while, but I learned that some of the tattoo artists retire early-ish. Well, early-ish. I don't know how old that would be, but because of their hands shaking, I'm just coming outside to check on the bonfire. It looks fine. It'll burn great once we get all of our newspapers and stuff in there. And where are you going, Muggs? Careful, there's oh, that's lovely. Okay, well, go over here. But instead I designed my own tattoos. A couple people have noticed, you know, my hand in the filming, and I designed this tattoo. Yeah, it's kind of a misnomer. I'm a very big Boondock Saints fan. A lot of people either love that movie or hate that movie. And people always question that tattoo, but I never tell them it's Boondock Saints. But I was actually surprised. I do get people who want me to design their tattoos for them. And they almost never ever get their tats done. I design the tattoo, they pay me, and we're all set to go. They got the inks, they got the color. You know, because tattoo artists, they need both the line art and the color. And then they don't get it done. And that's always such a bummer. But guess what? Someone actually got one of my images done. And I'll show it to you. I'll put some pictures in after this and you can check it out. I've got two other tattoos I can't really show you just because of the angle. They're on my shoulder. One's a memorial tattoo for my grandfather, who was ham radio operator in the war, and the other one is, well, Native American oriented spirituality, because I do have some Native American blood, hence the name Water Gazer. Come on, Monks, let's go. It's raining. Let's go. Don't be smelling that skunk. Had a skunk here the other night, stinking up the place. Anyway, I'll just throw those pictures in for funsies while I run back into the house. See you next time, me hearties. We'll be painting water. Yeah! Run, Muggsy, run! Run, Muggsy, run! That's as fast as a pug can go right there. Muggs! Muggsy! Where are you going? Muggsy! Yeah!